Hey guys, it's Healing the Gamer Girl here, and today we're actually going to discuss 4 phones that were released last year. The iPhone 14 and 14 Plus, along with the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. Now please do note that the sizes are the same because the iPhone 14 and the 14 Pro have a 6.1 inch display, while the 14 Plus and the 14 Pro Max has the 6.7 inch display. Now there are lots of things which are different compared to the iPhone 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max. Now please do note that this one has dynamic island that can only be found on the Pro and Pro Max, while the standard phone does not have the Pro and Pro Max. They actually do have a notch, which is similar to the iPhone 13 and 13 mini. Okay, so let's get started with the video. Okay, there are actually the 16 generations of the iPhones, which they succeed from iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 mini in 2021. On September 7, 2022, they have the high-priced iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max flagship. The iPhone 14 was released on September 16th, while the iPhone 14 Plus was released on October 7th. The pre-orders of the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus began on September 9, 2022, while the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max was released on the same year. However, the pre-orders actually began on the same date. So, the phone was actually released on September 23rd as well. It was released on September 23rd for the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max, while right here, it was actually released on the same date as well, Okay, so this one actually does not include the physical SIM cards, and those phones have the models. Since the CMDA variant of the iPhone 4 doesn't come with a discrete SIM card reader, so this SIM card reader, if you see an eSIM, the eSIM is only available in the US only, while in the international parts of the world, except for the United States, they actually do have a SIM tray with a SIM extractor. So it's actually a pin which is similar to a paper clip. So always remember, never ever use a screwdriver to do that. If you use the screwdriver, the SIM tray will break. Now the SIM tray is only available in international parts of the world except for the US. Okay. So eventually the United States actually dropped the support for physical SIM cards, and they have to use an eSIM in order to do that. So eventually, the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro Max are available in 4 colors: silver, space, black, gold, and deep purple. Deep purple is a new color replacing Sierra Blue, which was used on the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max. The chipset actually has a feature of the A16 Bionic system. It suppressed the A15 seen on the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro lineup, the 3rd generation of the iPhone SE, and the 14 and 14 Plus as well. Remember this, the A16 Bionic chip is only available on the 14 Pro and the Pro Max. So it's actually very, very simple because, if you want to find a better phone, if you want to transfer the phone to the Apple phone, you might as well read the terms and conditions first. And as well as this, think for yourself, why do you really want to transfer this phone into an Apple phone? Is there some benefits? Is there some pros and cons? Well, I don't use Samsung that much. I really don't use Samsung. Although, yes, I used to use Samsung a lot until 2010. And Nokia was until 2012. So, actually, I switched my phone into the Apple phone. I have been using Apple for 11 years, since 2012. Or maybe 9 years. I'm not really that sure. It may be 11 years because I started using an Apple phone in 2012. So eventually, I didn't know that much about the iPhone as well until I was a bit older. So yeah, that's all. So there was actually the camera, lenses, and sensors within the main and the ultra-wide cameras that has been upgraded this year. It has a 48 megapixel quad pixel sensor that is 65% larger than the iPhone 13 Pro. It actually equals to 12 megapixels, which implies to a process called pixel binding. However, the users can access the full capabilities with the Pro RAW feature, which is only available on the Pro and Pro Max, as I forgot to mention as well. There's an ultra-wide camera that actually has a new larger 12 megapixel sensor that focuses to 100%. As well as this, they have a no photographic engine as well. Action mode and cinematic mode are available for all phones, while some features on the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max have bigger and better models as well. Okay, so eventually, both variants have always on display and dynamic island. This is only available on the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max as well. Okay, so they also have an iOS 16 installed, and here it is. They have a multi-touch right here. They have a full sRGB display, always on display, ProMotion display, Dolby Vision, Dynamic Island. They also had the haptic charge. The chip is A16 Apple Bionic. They also have 1 terabyte. This is only for Pro and Pro Max phones already. While on regular phones, they only exceeded until 512. They only exceeded for that. They don't have a Touch ID, as I really mentioned before, but they also have a VI satellite. The VI satellite is only for US and Canada only, unfortunately. It is not available in anywhere else around the world except for the US and Canada as well. They also have a crash detection and the proximity sensor. They also have night mode as well, the optical zoom, which is up to 15x. However, the optical zoom 2x and 3x are only available on the Pro and Pro Max. As well as this, there are not many features that are actually available on the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus. They actually do have space black, deep purple, gold, and white as well. So it's actually supported and it's in production as well. They announced it just 9 days before it was released. The model number was actually A2651 or A2650 in the US only. But in other parts of the world, it actually depends because of the model, The model is actually right here. So if you want to have a look at this, the eSIM is only for US models, and the Nano SIM and eSIM is worldwide except for the United States. There is no removable storage as well. And as well as this, there's actually some dimensions, the height, width, and depth. They are not the same as it, but eventually, except for the depth is actually the same, while the height and the weight is not really the same. The Pro is actually a smartphone, while the Pro Max is actually a phablet. The form factor is actually a smartphone as well. So, the compatible networks has a 4G LTE and the 5G NR. I don't know what it really stands for. I'm so sorry about it. Not really that much of a phone expert, Okay, so eventually, they have a wireless and lighting, and it's fast capable charger. They have an always on display, as I mentioned before. If you go back to the video, this will tell you the full tour of it. If you don't know about it, then yes, it's better for you to watch if you're getting a new phone. Now, let's go back to the iPhone 14. The iPhone 14 actually doesn't have a mini version unlike the 13 mini from last year. Apple had not introduced a Plus model because of the iPhone 8 Plus in 2017 as well. The iPhone 14 and 14 Plus models were released along with the 14 Pro and Pro Max. They were sold in the US to drop the physical SIM cards, making them the first CNDA variant for the iPhone 4 to not come with a discrete SIM card writer. Now, eventually the 14 has an A2882 international. Sometimes it depends on your country, where you're from, because they'll put right here. For mine, it's actually the A2886. It's international. Now, if you're living in these countries, you'll get the A882 or you get the A2886. It depends on which country you're from. If you're from Southeast Asia, you will get this. If you're from the US, you'll get this. If you're from Canada or Japan, you'll get this. And if you're from Russia, you'll get this. It really depends on which country you're from and which the phone has been produced, So just a reminder that not all models are actually the same. So you really need to check the box. Which of the following models is it? So for mine was actually the A2886 because I actually got the iPhone 14 Plus. However, I am not using the phone yet because I think the case will come tomorrow because of the local distributor KWS who actually sells OtterBox will ship to my house tomorrow. Now this process is actually faster than the OtterBox because this one may take around a week or maybe a month. Who knows? Well, this one maybe take around a day. So once we get it, we'll get the screen protector, we'll fix everything including the SIM card, and then everything will be set to go and I can make videos out of this. But for the meantime, we're only using the videos to film on the iPad and the computer. The phone doesn't even have enough space, but I'll install the app back. So don't worry about it, okay? It's really easy. Okay. So eventually the pre-orders actually began on the same day. As for the iPhone 14 Plus, it was released on October 7th. The 14 and 14 Plus has an identical design with the iPhone 13, but the US models, the SIM tray has been removed. So they have available in 5 colors: blue, purple, midnight, starlight, and product red. Purple is a new color which replaced pink on the iPhone 13 and 13 mini. They also have a hardware as well with the internal storages, which is 128, 256, and 512. It has 6 gigabytes of RAM. So I actually picked out the 256 gigabyte for the iPhone 14. I'll show it to you later on what is there. Once I get everything installed, once I clean up the phone, once I arrange all the apps on the phone, everything will be set to go, okay? Because I'll be doing a video on that one later to have a look. Okay, just trust me for the time being if I'm using the iPhone 6s Plus, and because of that I don't have enough space already, and my phone's actually the 32 gigabyte, so that's why I cannot install too many apps, otherwise it will cause problems. Okay, just remember this, not all phones actually has to be installed, like not all phones, sometimes may take a day or sometimes may take around a month. Okay, so they have the same camera system with 2 cameras. They have a front-facing camera and a 2 back-facing camera. They have a faster adaptation from the iPhone 13 as well. The cameras also use a corruption photography engine called Smart HDR. It has a warm photographic styles with the capture, including the different filter, because it works intelligently with the image processing algorithm to capture the local adjustments in the image that can bake into the photo. Unlike filters can be removed after applying. The camera app actually has cinematic mode, which allows users to film movies that can turn into Hollywood movies as well. The iPhone 14 and 14 Plus also got shipped with the iOS 16 as well. Okay, so eventually they do not have a backlight. They have multi-touch as well. They do not have a ProMotion display, always on display, and dynamic island. Remember, this is not the Pro and Pro Max. This is the original phones. They also have the A15 Bionic chip. They don't have a Touch ID, as I said before. They have a dual nano SIM, which is available in East Asia only. They also have the no physical SIM card in US models. They only support eSIM in the US only as well. As well as this, the optical zoom only has 0.5x and 1x. The rest of this optical zoom is only available on the Pro and Pro Max as well. As well as this, they only have these colors as well, as I mentioned. They're actually made of the glass pack, aluminum, and have a back glass front. They are actually supported and are still in production as well. Alright. So eventually the sizes are really not the same as well. The depth is also the same as the Plus and the original phone. The regular phone, as I was talking about, you know. The VA satellite is only in the US and Canada only. As I mentioned before, they also have a LiDAR sensor as well. However, this is not the same as the iPhone Pro and Pro Max as well. As well as this, they actually do have Dolby Atmos, the stereo speaker, and spatial audio as well. As well as this, I don't think the iPhone 14 Plus or the regular iPhone will get discontinued at any time soon. But I think for the Pro and Pro Max, they will get discontinued. Unlike the 13 Pro and Pro Max, they actually did get discontinued last year. So eventually, what I was gonna say is, when they release iPhone 15, I'm not too sure yet. I'm just saying that every time a phone comes out, then they'll just release a new phone. It gets very, very expensive depending on which currency you use. Okay. So eventually, I think that's all for now. If you really have any suggestions about the video, please do let me know, okay? I'm not much of a phone expert, I'm very sorry, because I think I know like a lot of Apple phones. Back in 2012, I actually started using the Apple phones for 11 years actually, because there was actually the iPhone 4S, which was actually released in 2011, but I actually stopped using it until 2017. We're moving on to actually iPhone 5C, but I only used it for 1 year. Now the iPhone 6s Plus, which I'm actually going to transfer all my data, including the SIM card, this year, will actually change because I have the iPhone 14 Plus now, and I'll no longer be able to do videos on the 6s Plus because, you know, the phone was discontinued 5 years ago. It's just before I actually got it, you know, like just 3 days before its discontinuation, and now I do believe that iPhone 12 will get discontinued if I'm not really mistaken. I'm not much of a phone expert, I'm very sorry again, but I think in my opinion, some phones will actually get discontinued, such as the 12 or maybe the SE 3rd generation. I know the 1st and 2nd SE generation phones have got discontinued already, so they won't be able to use that phone. However, it is not really compatible with some iOS updates, you know. So just keep that in mind that if you have the iOS 16, you'll be able to do lots of stuff. But remember, the iOS 16 is only for iPhone 8 or later. If you have an older phone within that, you cannot update the app. It will have to be remained as iPhone 15.7 or 15.2. Depends on what update you install. But anyways, that's all.